So I've been thinking and trying to understand this mentality of some of these men out here that call themselves alpha men. I still don't understand where the whole system came from. And honestly, I think it's just men that desperately want some control. And so the way that they're going about getting it is by harming other people. And it is harmful. And I don't mean to say that in a like feminist, I hate man way, because it's not true. I'm not a feminist and I don't hate men. But I do hate the behavior of these men, and I think that it's more frustrating because they don't even know what they do. Some of them don't know what they do. A lot of them might know what they do, but they think it's normal type deal. And then when you have people constantly ingraining in you that it's normal, then, you can't think of in any other way. First off, I'm not a fan of the whole preferences thing. I think your preferences concerning race or concerning region of the world, to me, they're very vain, because a decent person is a decent person no matter what their skin color or what region of the world they come from. But I cannot deny that there are some nationalities and some regions of the world which are adhere to traditional values more so than other parts of the world and other nationalities. I cannot say that America has retained its traditional roles for gender. I was watching a video the other day. This guy was interviewing the Maasai tribe, which is a tribe in Africa, and he went to ask them, how many genders do you have in your society? And they were talking about there's only two. Anyone that thinks there's more than that, they're crazy. And they talk about the gender roles and what a woman is and what a man is. But in America, they're trying to blur the lines of that. And so what we have going on is the breaking up of families, and we have things like the manosphere, in which they're partially trying to restore those things, partially just trying to get what they want in the worst way. And so I understand their pain of wanting a traditional woman, and so, one of the guys is like, well, you should date Thai women. And yeah, the traditional roles that Thai women play, that's what it is. That's what a woman is supposed to do, in my opinion. I'm a Christian, and so their roles are very, there's not really anything different other than the God that they worship, if they worship a God. I know a lot of Thai people probably practice Buddhism or whatever the deal is. But as a Christian woman, my role is to be the helpmeet and the caretaker of the home and that kind of thing. And then the man is supposed to be the head, the lead, and he's supposed to be the provider and the protector and that kind of thing. And it doesn't mean that there won't be overlap or whatever the deal is, but we want to be in a household where, we're worshiping God in the way that He created us, and that includes accepting the gender roles and walking in them. So they're trying to blur the lines in America concerning those things. And so I completely understand why these men are like, I'm going to East Asia. East Asia is not the only place. You can go to East Europe. You can go to Africa. Lots of places in Africa hold these gender roles. But I understand there's also a race thing that comes in. So a lot of men aren't going to want to go to Africa. They're going to want to go to the other countries because the programming that these other women are more attractive. And especially if you're into anime and that kind of thing. Like, I had a cousin that really just liked Asian women because of anime. And I'm like, this is kind of stupid. What if you meet someone else that is decent for you? Because there were friends I would have hooked him up with that were decent women, but they were black. And he might have said no because they were black, even though they were decent women. I don't think he actually would have did that, but there's a lot of men out here that would have did that. So he actually ended up dating two white girls. Kind of funny. But anyway, it didn't work out with these two white girls either, because one of them had huge mental problems, and then I don't know what happened with the other one. I think she was upset because he didn't really want to do too much with his life, and I think eventually he ended up becoming a Christian, and I think that's what he initially was supposed to do. He wasn't supposed to be a man that was trying to go up the ladder. Like, he was supposed to be a godly man type deal. And he, even though I think he's fallen away quite a bit because he won't stay out of all this Dungeons and Dragons and he's hanging out with witches and that kind of thing, he still has those traits of being a godly man. So he just got steered in the wrong direction a couple times. Pray for him to come back. But anyway, and I started to think about, well, what about the women? Because, you have these men of the manosphere that are trying to restore the traditional roles in some kind of way, but they're going completely left field as far as wanting to sleep with all these women and then telling men that they should do that. And, that's completely left field. That's not a traditional role for a man at all. And, they use the excuse of, well, all these kings in the past, but I'm like, you're not a king. You are a peasant in America. Like, you're not Pharaoh. You're not at the top. You're not in the government. You're doing nothing. They tried to use the Bible. I was like, no, that was a select few people. And anytime they have multiple women, something bad happened, because that's not what God ordained from the beginning. He didn't ordain man to sleep around with a bunch of women. That is a modern societal thing where they basically preach it like it's the gospel type deal. And so, yeah, you had men sleeping around in the past, but it was much more common for a man to have a wife and to stick with his wife. So, I was thinking about like men in other countries, and I started watching these videos, and I've always liked Middle Eastern men because they hug each other. And I know that sounds weird, but in America we would consider that gay, and a lot of times a man might be having homosexual feelings toward another man if he's hugging on another man. But in Eastern society, in Middle Eastern society, the men hug each other and they kiss each other on the cheek, and there's nothing gay about it. It's just them showing love. They have a certain amount of warmth towards one another, the men, and they have that warmth towards the women as well. And you see their families together, a lot of these families, and they're just like laughing and having a great time, and just like, and so I've also dated a South Korean guy, and he had this whole thing about his lineage being from warriors. I didn't know what he was talking about. I was like, okay, why do you keep bringing this up type deal? And I don't know if it was a way to try to impress me. I didn't really care. But this man was such a good man. Like, when we went on dates, he paid for everything. He didn't complain about it. He didn't, we slept, okay, first off, before I became a Christian, don't go out and do this. It was like literally 10 years before I became a Christian almost. But I met him on New Year's and wanted a New Year's kiss, and so we just kissed on New Year's. And then I slept in his bed for like 3 days. We didn't do anything. Not a thing. The same thing, there was another Korean man that happened with too. I slept in his bed for like a month. Didn't do anything. Didn't kiss. We just spoke the whole time. I don't know. So it's like this dichotomy of these men, usually that think they're alpha men, that, if you're going to sleep in their bed and they're going to pay for dinner, then they're going to want something from you. It was not the same with these men. Like, it was completely different. And then I was going to talk about how, what was I going to talk about? Like, they were respectful, they wanted to talk, they wanted to go on dates and actually pay for them. That to me, like, what is so wrong with that? Like, I don't understand. I think it's like night and day type deal. And the crazy thing is, these men were very humble. They weren't trying to put themselves in a position as if they were above or better than anyone. They were just, this is what they felt like was the role of a man, and so they were playing that role. And so I was watching some videos of just like couples, like the Latino couple and the Asian couple and that kind of thing. And the Asian couple was like, the man, he was saying that he makes the money, and his wife, I think maybe she had like a job, but it wasn't like anything spectacular. He had a really nice job, and so she took care of like their financial situation. Like, he would put the money in the bank and she paid all the bills and that kind of thing. And he wasn't like, this is my money, it belongs to me. He was like, that's our money, like, I'm making that money for the both of us type deal. And he was basically like, I don't really even care about the money. Like, she can do with it what she wants to, but she doesn't do anything with it because she doesn't want anything. And so it's like he had the understanding of the role that he needed to play as a provider and a protector, and there was no problem with it. And she seemed like a decent woman. Like, she would not take his money and run type deal, because there was actually real love between the two. And so a lot of these Western men are kind of looking at everything as a business transaction more so, and it's just really crappy. It's unfortunate, because I think these men are really holding themselves back. And by the way, I'm not a gold digger. I don't need a man with a lot of money. And every relationship I've ever been in, I have told the men, like, I don't need anything. Like, because I literally didn't need anything. What do I need? I have a job. I get my little clothing here and there. I pay my bills. I pay my gas. I don't need anything. So I don't need to go out for 5-star meals. And I don't need anything. I just, like, can you just love me and we just love each other? And that's like the basics of it. But because these men are in such a fallen state, they can't even do that. And so things have to become a business transaction so they can actually feel like they are giving something to these women. So there was a Middle Eastern man, maybe he was Arab, and he had a black girlfriend. Both very attractive. That doesn't really matter. Middle Eastern men are not as hung up, I think, on the standards that American men have. Like, first off, most Middle Eastern women, absolutely gorgeous to begin with. But some of the standards that were coming from these alpha men was like, oh, you have to work out and you have to be skinny and you have to have long hair and like all these things. And they were even excluding black women from it completely. It was kind of crazy because some of them were black. But this Middle Eastern man just like bought his girlfriend like a diamond ring just because. It wasn't because they were getting married or anything. But he said, well, I'm a man. I want to get nice things for you. And it reminded me of like God and how God gives us good things. He's not like, you have to do this for me, Loretta. He's like, no, I want to give you good things because I love you type deal. It's not like I'm giving you good things to get a piece of tail. So I'm just saying this to say something's got to change. Like, you don't have to settle, just like these men say they don't have to settle for Western women. You don't have to settle for, a Western man. Even though, I just suggest you don't go it that far, because not all Western men are evil and have these thoughts and that kind of thing. But you can expand your horizon and see what's out there, and, because there are lots of good Christian men in other nations as well. The Christian men that I see in Western America, they're not that bad. Although I believe that many of these churches are false out here, so if you come under his authority, then you're going to have to go to his church and believe in the way he does for the most part. I've had friends that have had they're Torah keepers. I've had friends that are Torah keepers, and they end up marrying Sunday Christian men, and these Sunday Christian men don't want to change anything. They want to keep on with Christmas, they want to keep on with Easter, and my friends are trying to tell them, like, we're not supposed to be doing that as Christians, and they don't want to change. And so, you know, you can only do so much as a woman with a husband if you're trying to change something. So, you know, go out and get you a nice foreign Christian man. I heard Filipino men are absolutely amazing. Some people believe that the Philippines are the gold of Ophir mentioned in the Bible. I don't necessarily think that's true. I think it's somewhere in Africa, but I've met Filipino men, and there's some decent men, and a lot of them, if they love God with a seriousness. It's not 1 foot in the world and 1 foot out of the world. Same thing with like Koreans, and you know. And then something interesting I learned the other day was that Abraham was circumcised at the same time as Ishmael. And so Ishmael, for a lot of you guys who don't know, are a lot of these Middle Eastern men. And so God did promise these men that they were, men and women, that they were going to be blessed. And I really do think like that group of people, the one that aren't doing crazy stuff like scalping people and being crazy, bombing places, when you go into a Middle Eastern country, which I've been to Morocco, it kind of has the same feel even if it's in Africa. It's just different, you know. You can tell that there's love between the people there, so it's something to consider. But at the end of the day, just go with who God has given you. But just be open-minded if you don't know who God has given you to other cultures around the world, because I think at the end of it all, they might be willing to, you know, follow the man's tradition in the way that it should be, you know, not thinking that they have to have multiple women and all this kind of stuff to be able to be in a happy relationship. And I really feel as though part of that comes from just not being satisfied in general. Like, you're always kind of looking and you're never satisfied, and so even when you do get a decent woman, you can't appreciate her, even if she is some kind of West or Eastern woman, because you just don't have that love in your heart, where I've seen these people do. So you guys be blessed. Have a good one. Bye.